my motto was always, if there's anything that's close to what we're doing and that's representing what we're doing, make it a part of what you're doing. I would rather T-Pain been a part of us than him being my competitor.
That's real.
This last clip wanted to talk about competition, right? So there was a recent interview with Akon on Sway talking about T-Pain, right? Another great artist. Both Akon and T-Pain are amazing artists. And there were a lot of similarities that people were saying between T-Pain and Akon. And so the question was, why did you sign him if there were similarities? And this is what he said.
Like, my motto was always, if there's anything that's close to what we're doing and that's representing what we're doing, make it a part of what you're doing. I would rather T-Pain been a part of us than him being my competitor.
First off, that was a very smart decision, money-wise. Because if you know T-Pain's career, my man was very successful and still is successful to this day. But music-wise, I think everybody wanted a T-Pain hook. Everybody wanted, like, his albums did amazing. T-Pain was highly successful before. Now, I like this theory, this kind of vibe that he has been thinking about as far as, like, you know what? Just can't beat them, join them kind of situations. Like, yeah. I'd rather corner the market with similar vibes and just them embodying who we are and this type of market than necessarily compete. And then eventually I'm going to reach a certain type of level that's either going to peak, stay where it's at. I'm not going to grow because I've already been on the top. So instead of being selfish and just thinking I'm always going to be on top, no, we as a company is going to be on top because we are gathering other people who have similar traits, similar styles, similar mindsets, and we're going to do this together. And I think that's really, really, really important for people to understand the power of collaboration and the power of partnerships, because at some point we will not be on top. We will not always be number one, but what we represent and our company and our business structure can be. And that's just by moving in strategic ways where some will battle with that because of pride.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just think about it. Every time an acquisition is made, the company that makes the acquisition is always, for the most part, looked at as the industry leader.
Yeah.
So when we see that, LVMH acquired Off-White, we're like, oh, shoot, Louis Vuitton, whatever. It's like, oh, okay. So, like, they further really stamp their foot in the space to show no, we're the best here. Look, we're gaining more ground. So I follow that mentality, man. I think you're right as far as pride will often say, no, they're not better than us, or it kind of puts us in this mentality where we talked about it in previous episodes where we think that there can only be one number one. We come from, unfortunately, that background where it's just everything is so limited. It's always a limited mentality or scarcity. But once you start thinking about that, you eliminate the noise. And I think the one thing people underestimate is the fact that there's so much collaboration that can come from having another A player in your team. So we were talking about how building teams, quite honestly, that's another way to build a team. It's to partner and acquire someone who's already dominant in their space. Now you can skip the steps of having to seek the talent, find the talent, hire the talent, train the talent, hope that they pan out the way that you expect. It's like, no, I can just look at a T-Pain and I already know what his record is based off of obviously what he's done in the space. So when I bring him into, the label and now we've collaborated in a sense, you know what you're getting. It's pretty much there to show. So I think that's another strategic way to kind of build and get some level of security with you. You know that it's going to pan out.
The thing is that I feel that is a huge struggle is how do you put that pride aside? Right? Like, okay, I get it. Partnerships, collaborations. I hear you, Nicky and Moose. Okay. Now I have them and they're doing something better than me. And I feel like I have to do it too. Right? Like, granted, I am competitor type. I'm competitive as all get up. Okay. I'm still working on it. But I've done a lot better. And I think as humans, we just love competition, right? Yeah. And I think that's where it comes from with there can only be one.
There can be only one.
Because us as humans love to see people battle it out. Like, what is the best? I think Kevin Hart spoke about it perfectly on Drink Champs when they're like, the number one black comedian. It's like, yo, there can be multiple black comedians that are on top. Like there doesn't only need to be one. There's one who's really good at this and one who's really good at that and one who's good. Like even with basketball, it's like it's cool to say greatest of all time, but that's kind of downplaying the other people, right? Mm-hmm. I say all that because when going back to the pride situation, like, of course, as leaders in the game, and you are coming up with a certain amount, a level of pride and competition, right? Now you're like, okay, I got to bring in people. This is great to build a platform for others. Great, woo, woo, woo. But while you're still in the game and you're seeing this person maybe going what you deemed as out of line or not as the brand, like, how do you stop yourself from interfering and making it not such a collaborative thing? It almost makes it feel as little fellow over there, okay? Ma'am, hello. You're here, we're working together, but know your place. Like, you ain't there yet. Like, that's unhealthy. That's still very unhealthy. Like, what are some thoughts on that one? Very long question, my bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, pride in general, I don't know that I'm fully able to speak on it because I have a lot of it. I've always talked about it as my bad
That's
side.
Why I want to talk about it, because I'm like, maybe more we talk about it, maybe it will help as well.
Yeah, no, I certainly hope so. But I mean, it's like,
I see what you're doing, but maybe we could try. I don't know. Been this way this whole time.
I just think it's always this sense of I don't want to give someone the right or the opportunity to come back and say slander your name. I think that's definitely part of where pride comes from, right? Where I think especially as minority men, there's this stigma of what you're supposed to do for yourself and your family, and you shouldn't allow another man to do for you.
Right.
So I know part of it definitely comes from that. It's like that very traditional, almost hard-headed mentality that comes with it, because that's just how you were groomed. That's how you were told you should be. And when you take some of those practices into business, as you mentioned, it can be a little bit toxic. But I think about other successful people who've done it. So like one of the people that comes to mind who I think is really great at this is CJ. And I see a very healthy version of the way he does it, because he puts other power players in place, but he is whole enough to never feel as though his self-esteem has been shaken. And I think when your confidence is fully intact, you feel good about yourself and what you bring to the table. Other people almost immediately just respect those boundaries. And you don't hear about anything going south, with what he's established, whether it be bringing on people. I've always even thought about, like, man, how would you bring up someone, say, and not that I'm saying anything bad about him. I mean, I think freaking amazing, but say Inky onto the platform where it's almost, well, hey, don't you think that can be direct competition to E? Actually, no. When you think about how it unfolded with the brand, and you see many collaborations between E and Inky, whether on the stage, different conferences, whatever it may be, and you see how well that's played out. So I think moments like that give us enough, say, of a sample size where we can start to see this is actually the better way to do it. If you don't want to get crossed, or if you don't want to get left behind, or you don't want to deal with the pressure of one day someone coming saying, oh yeah, look at a little man over there that once was hot. It probably is in your best interest to collaborate with the top talent. And of course, with some vetting. I'm not saying just go and immediately jump into bed with someone because you're concerned that they will one day beat you out for the number one position. But you're going to do some vetting to make sure it's the right people. But yeah, in my mentality, I definitely think that's part of it. Maybe what I struggle with is personal pride. I don't think it's collaborative pride. Collaborative pride, I'm cool with. It's personal pride that messes me up.
Hey, you are protective though. I wouldn't call it pride, but there's certain things you're very protective, and you're like, who's that? No. We're like, but it's great. And you trust who is he?
Right.
Who is he?
Right. Yeah. You got to give people time, man. You got to give people time. I think every person in, say, a new environment, or for people who just like new things in general, they can almost be a little bit easily impressed with someone or something that's in the space. It's like, oh yeah, no, that's perfect. It's like, no, but give it time. And I think it's almost unfair to the people who've been loyal to you for X amount of years if you just jump to the next shiny object and you overlook the loyalty and the effort and all of the things that go into making a relationship work or a partnership work for X amount of years. So I'm cognizant of that too, right? Like that's one thing I definitely have learned over the years, is that you can't neglect people's efforts. That's not cool. Like, you talk about team building. You can't build a team that is constantly neglecting people who are pouring in their blood, sweat, and tears. I'm gonna hit a chord because I already see your facial expression.
I'm like, this is a whole after show combo, because if you want to get into it,
Yeah, it's important, man.
We can get into it. We may have to discuss a little bit about the after show. I'm just, because I don't think I can go in the way I want to on this.
Not appropriately.
Yeah. That's why we have other pieces of content that we create that allows me to be me. Not saying you don't get me here, but politically correct statements sometimes have to be on the main show. And but what I will say to that part, without going too much into it, I will say, to avoid that feeling that of like the shiny new object and the other people feeling whoa, what about me kind of situation. I think getting more into the celebration mode is needed more. I was reading 24 Assets, which is a really good book, right? I think, what was it by? Daniel Presley or something like that, right? And one of the things he said was like, yo, after a campaign, celebrate. I don't care how good or how bad this campaign did. We need to celebrate. So, because what they said before was, campaign went great, made millions of dollars. The top 3 people quit because they were drained. Because the company had created an environment of campaign after campaign after campaign and no recognition, no, hey, great job, this is cool, and not just by words, like you have to actually do something as well. I say all that because I think we're always going to get new people. And regardless if we're trying to be very intentional with not making people feel, yo, what about, haven't you seen me? That's still going to happen because as you bring in new people, there's going to be a certain amount of energy you have to give those people. It's like a new baby, right? And then the one that was there already, the kid that was already there was like, hey, you used to do that for me. I used to get carried. Pick me up. Yo, you're 7.
Right.
But pick me up. Like, what we talking about, right? I think only New York babies sound like that, but it's cool, right? So I think to a certain level, that's going to always happen, but to help, not avoid, but to help is to make sure you recognize what the people you do have on your team are doing. Whether it's from the smallest thing of saying thank you individually to maybe a whole team outing and situation, but something so that when new people come in, you're like, hey dog, okay, you already working me to death and you showing super love over there. What am I here for? What am I exactly here for? But
yeah, no, that's valid. That's valid. Recognition goes a long way, man. Simple please, thank you. Like, I hate to take it back there, but the simple pleasantries definitely make a difference.
This is a fact.